It would last for 100 years, but in one case, it broke after just 8 days and the patient died instantly.
Imagine the anxiety of knowing that the type of artificial heart valve keeping you alive had killed other people when it broke inside their chests.
An artivalve with a fatal flaw. It breaks. If the problem isn't diagnosed immediately and the patient rushed into open heart surgery, death is certain. Question is, how do you recall a heart valve that's in somebody's chest? The Shiley Company, owned by Pfizer Incorporated, is one of the world's biggest manufacturers of artificial heart valves, and it knew this particular valve before it even went on the market. As this report shows, one valve broke during testing in 1978, killing the patient. In the original permit to sell the valve, the FDA required Shiley to submit within 10 days complete reports on any injuries due to the valve. According to this internal FDA memorandum, the company waited as long as 10 months before revealing fractures. But other fractures were never reported.
We have always kept the FDA and the medical community fully informed of the 60-degree CC evaluation.
Shiley's policy is not to warn, to notify doctors instead.
In fact, a version of this valve never even made it onto the American market simply because the authorities there were too nervous to approve it. So what did the corporation do? They began dumping the faulty valve overseas.
To me, it is nothing short of murder. Went to a meeting, and during the meeting, suddenly had no breath. And within about an hour or so, he was dead. There was no warning whatsoever.
Bob Moffat was one of 900 Australians who had this valve implanted. But the struts of Bob's valve cracked and his heart was flooded with blood.
Was there any chance that his life could have been saved at that point?
No, none whatsoever. Once that valve had exploded, there was nothing anybody could do.
It could be days, and it could be months. And when it does break, you have absolutely no warning. You could be sitting there like we're sitting right now, with no problems at all, and 2 minutes later you could be in trauma, dying.
If anyone knows the dangers of the Bjork-Shiley heart valves, it's George Sherry. He was a supervisor at their Californian plant. He saw firsthand critical flaws in the valves.
So that this rod here, which is the life-dependent device, core of this device here, I have seen it break, fall apart, just by bending it with the hands.
What would they do if they discovered a cracked valve?
Oh, they would just reinsert it into the fixture again and try to weld over it.
That some cracked heart valves were even retrieved from garbage bins, polished up, and then sold.
And they really had no intention of correcting this. When I went public in Washington, D.C. with this information, all hell broke loose.
When the American Congress turned up the heat on Shiley, and then Washington's Food and Drug Administration began an investigation, they found evidence of a gross corporate cover-up over many years. It had hidden the flaws.
I believe that the valve has saved far more lives than were lost by fracture.
But they are killing us. If they put in a valve that was manufactured properly, then they can say they saved our life.
Elaine and thousands of other Americans have a Bjork-Shiley valve that opens 60 degrees. Around 650 of that model was sold in Australia. But there's another type that opens up to 70 degrees, and it has even more problems.
The FDA turned down the 70-degree valve in the States, and when that happened, the manufacturer turned around and sold the 70-degree valve to European countries and Australia and other places in the world. I mean, they were literally killing off people.
This is the Bjork-Shiley 70-degree heart valve, made right here in sunny California. But you could never buy it here. That would be illegal because the American government never approved this valve for sale to Americans. But it seems the rest of us don't matter as much.
It just seems as if we're not good enough. We're not as good as the American people.
Beryl's husband, Bob, had the 70-degree valve implanted in 1982.
They were using people like Bob.
Yes, just as if we were guinea pigs.
How could a company take a product and take it somewhere else, use other people as guinea pigs.
Australians were indeed guinea pigs for the Shiley Company, and that happened because of a blatant lie to our federal government. In May 1981, Shiley's distributors wrote to our Federal Health Department in Canberra telling them that the 70-degree valve had been given investigational status by the American government, so the valve started going into Australian hearts. But 6 months later, our trade officials discovered that there had not been even preliminary approval of the valves. Shiley's boys had conned Australia. Bob Moffat is one of about 400 people around the world known to have died from a fractured Bjork-Shiley heart valve. But these are officially registered deaths, and many more may have gone unreported.
Well, to me it's just murder. Manslaughter and murder.
The Bjork-Shiley Convex-Concave valves have been forced off the market, but only after more than 80,000 people around the world had them implanted. The man who blew the whistle says many of the 60-degree valves will fail, but the 70-degree valves are a disaster.
Every person that has that 70-degree valve must have that thing taken out.
Go and have it replaced. We've been through it, and I tell you, it's something terrible. Don't say that it's not going to happen to me. Just go ahead and do something. It's your life.